Super. Well, welcome everybody. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. And thanks for joining us on this Serious Risk webinar on choosing threat modeling, addressing unique risks and securing your AI future. Basically, what we're going to cover today is we're going to be talking about why you would use threat modeling in order to secure AI systems, including agentic systems. What are the kinds of approaches you should use when doing that? And of course, how can we help you with some resources from Serious Risk? So I'm joined on this call by George and Jorge. So I'm Stephen DeFries, CEO and co-founder. George Macrodimitris heads up our head of software adoption, and he is the brains behind our training courses, including, of course, some of our AI and agentic AI training courses. Jorge Esperon is a senior security architect in our security research team. This is the team that's responsible for researching the content that you will find in the Serious Risk platform and creating the risk patterns and the knowledge base behind it. Welcome, George and Jorge.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Well, I could say we got George squared, right? So it's
yeah,
we've got two Georges here. So welcome, guys.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think as a way of introduction as well, we'll share these resources at the end of the webinar too. But just as a heads up, so Jorge is the author of our blog on streamlining agentic AI security about the Maestro framework. So there'll be a link we'll post during the webinar on that blog post. And then the agentic AI course that I alluded to earlier is the one that George created. And you're welcome to click on that link and follow that agentic AI security course. We'll come back to those.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jorge?
No, the course, I think it's available this week, right, George?
Yes, it's from today. Actually, now I made it available.
Oh,
excellent.
Cool.
So we're giving it the light of day today. Actually, well done. Yeah. Excellent. So let me stop sharing, and we can just get into the meat of the webinar here. And well, actually, before I do that, just some housekeeping. There's a chat system in Zoom. There's also a Q&A system. So Q&A, if you do have a question, please post it into the Q&A. All the panelists will see that, and we can answer your questions immediately. If you do want to just have chat about any topics or whatever, you can use the chat system in Zoom. We're aiming for about a half an hour to 40-minute webinar, depending on questions that are coming in. Feel free to ask a question whenever you want. We're not going to have a separate questions section right at the end. So, as a question arises in your mind, please post it, and we'll come to it when we can. Right, let's get started. So, I think this, the first question we need to address is, why is security important in the development of AI systems, right? Why do we need to invest in security when we're building a new system, particularly based on AI?
Well, I believe that AI systems, 20 years ago was something that it was in the air. We were not actually using it, but today AI is integrated into every element of a business operation, a decision-making process. And also this generates a new threat landscape. We have new attacks like data poisoning, adversarial attacks, model extraction attacks that make security very important for AI systems. And without that, without shifting a little bit on the left, on developing AI models and using them, I think I will not be able to secure our systems effectively nowadays. And it's very, very vital today in today's world.
Yeah, and it seems like, sorry, go ahead, Jorge.
Yeah, I agree with George. I think we are not worrying about the network zone or the application zone like we did in the past. We have an expanded attack surface that maybe we will cover later. But yeah, the game has changed a lot. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think it's, thinking back to the early days of application security, it was it was kind of exciting that you had a new fabric of technology. You had JavaScript, you had HTML as the new technologies, and then there were all the security implications, and even things that look boring now, things like cross-site scripting. Back then, that was extremely exciting. Like, you can run active scripts. An attacker could run scripts in your browser. Now, what could you do with that? And then we had the Facebook worms come up, and this whole set of attacks aimed at this layer in the web that just didn't exist before. And it seems like with AI, we're in that same kind of moment again, where there's a new fabric of technology sitting on top of everything else, and it is now these AI-based systems.
Yeah.
I guess the obvious question is what is different about analyzing an AI system for security or even securing it versus looking at just a regular web application system from a security perspective?
That's a very good question. Actually, now we are encountering a new field of threats, because all these years we're dealing with software that had a specific fixed logic on what it was doing. Now AI has a non-deterministic approach, a non-deterministic behavior towards the results that it's generating. And these generate some challenges of how we can protect something that has its own mind right now. And we can see that by using just ChatGPT. If we use the same question, we are gonna generate different output. So there are cases that it makes it really difficult to actually manage how to protect an AI model and AI software in general. So I think it's very challenging field, and the only way that we can do it is by having a structured way of what threats are the most important, prioritize them, and work towards them a little bit at a time to secure them effectively. It's a new field, new things are coming up, so we just need to be prepared as much as we can and try to tackle them.
Yeah, I think so. That's why, I think threat modeling and security design are more important than ever, because now data is part of the logic. So that changed the landscape a lot about thinking what could go wrong. That it could be expanded a lot. Okay.
But I think that's an interesting point, Jorge, because when you look at all pre-AI systems, the one of the key security mechanisms we would put in place is to scan it, right? So you've deployed a new system, scan it. The scanner is going to find the thing, the security issues. Has that thinking changed around AI?
Yeah, I think so. In your previous example, you've been talking about the cross-site scripting in the past. Cross-site scripting is still a thing nowadays. In fact, I think it's still the first reason for not complying with PCI, for example, because it's a hard thing to fix. It's not that easy. It's the general recommendation of input validation. It's accurate, but it's very difficult because you have different layers. You have the front end, you have the back end, you have the database. So now it's more difficult than ever because prompt injection is almost a feature in an LLM system, because it's not a question about if it's going to be possible. If what are you going to do when you are going to have that prompt injection? Will you be able to protect your crown jewels after that or not? That is the real question that you should tackle when you are doing a threat modeling exercise. So you need a layer approach for that. Yeah.
And so you would, looking at threat modeling of traditional systems or threat modeling of AI systems, is there a difference in the approach you would use?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why these new frameworks like Maestro are very useful, because they have they tackle the specifics of the agentic system, because those systems have expanded capabilities. They are autonomous. They are able to reason. So those things could be exploited in separate ways, even during the training time. That's before the system goes to production. So that's you have a lot of nuances there. So I think, yeah, you need a specific framework, you need a specific way of thinking to model those systems. Yeah, and I think it's about thinking what could go wrong, but you know, having in mind that it's about the data. You should have a clear mind where the data is, what is the data provenance. So everything is around the data. That's the real challenge with AI systems. Data security, it's very, very, very important. Yeah.
And you mentioned the Maestro framework earlier. Sorry to cut you off, George. But the Maestro framework, could you tell us a bit more about that? When is it used? What did it do? And why would you use it?
Yeah, Master Framework was created by Cloud Security Alliance. This guy was Ken Huang, if I remember well. And you know, he thought about creating like 7 specific layers to tackle the security challenge with agentic AI systems. Okay, from foundation models, for example, LLMs and so on, that would be layer 1 to the layer 7. Okay, this is the agent ecosystem, how those agents interact together. Because right now, an agent, you know, for example, social attacks are expanding from targeting humans to targeting agents, because agents could be persuaded also, could be forced to do tricky things, could be, you know, it's very interesting on that sense, because you have a lot of dynamic properties in the system. You know, it's very challenging. Yeah.
And I want to add something about Maestro. I think it's very, very valuable when it comes to threat modeling, because agentic AI, we are just now working on threat modeling agentic AI systems. It gives you a very good structure of where to place the components. We start sometimes from trust zones, and this layered framework can give you good guidance of, oh, I need to put some components over there. The data flow should go from this layer to this layer. So you identify where to place each component and what data flows to connect. So I believe it's a very valuable work when it comes to Maestro.
We got a question in the chat here. Is the Maestro framework tailored only for agentic AI threat modeling, or can it be applied to LLMs in general?
It's tailored for agentic systems and also multi-agent systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for LLMs, you have other specific frameworks like OWASP top 10 for LLMs, for example. That could be, you know, handy on that perspective.
Yeah. So, you know, when I think back to using first principles, using something like Stride to threat model an agentic AI system, I suppose it would work. It just takes you, it'll take you a long while to get to a threat model, because you need to think from first principles. Whereas what I'm hearing is Maestro kind of gives you a different perspective to look at threats, and so that you can understand what specific threats are applicable to agentic systems, where you don't have to use such a generic framework like Stride. Even though it may work, it's not the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
As George said before, we have new threats here. So yeah, Stride falls short to tackle those. You know, was created from Microsoft ages ago. It's still useful, but yeah.
Again, Maestro is a layered architecture that sits above these frameworks like Stride, Pasta. It's like a mental model of how to design and if you want to create a diagram of an agentic AI.
Yeah. And Jorge, we Irius Risk have included the Maestro framework in our security content library.
Yeah, exactly. It was delivered, I think, on 448 version. Yeah.
And
so
for those on for the audience, you're free to use that on the community edition. It's also released on our free to use community edition, so you can get a sense of what that content looks like.
Yeah.
And
we're
you
very
mentioned
open
something earlier.
to receive feedback on that. You know, we appreciate. You know.
Excellent. You mentioned as well, Jorge, the importance of the security of the data itself. Now, I'm assuming this refers mainly to companies that are building their own models So if you are building your own LLM, you need to care about the security of the data, or does the security of the data also matter when you're just using someone else's LLM, like most of, I think most of the people on the call will probably be doing?
Yeah, it has an expanded coverage, not only for LLM builders, but also if you're using an LLM, but you want more specific results tailored to your specific policies, you're going to use a RAG system, and you need to feed that RAG system with good data, good data lineage and provenance. So yeah, you should tackle that too. Yeah, you have other potential data sets that could be useful. And if you are retraining the model somehow, or doing some fine tuning, again, you are open the door to data injections or data poisoning attacks. Yeah.
So now that you're mentioning specific attacks, if we let's say we want to start our first threat model of an AI-based system, what would you say are the first steps that we should take to kind of map the attack surface? Like, where could somebody attack this this AI system?
I can try to create like a very high level view of what we mean by an AI system. So first we have the training data. And of course, under that, we have the AI model that we feed this training data. And below that, and that comes to a question that we had previously, it was about the previous threats that we have, not the AI, but the traditional infrastructure threats that we have. So below the AI model sits the common infrastructure that we have, right? Because the AI model needs to run somewhere. I think we are adding a threat landscape, as we said. So if we create that data flow diagram of training data, the AI model, and then below the underneath infrastructure, first thing that we need to see is the poison data. So whatever comes from the training data, if we train the model, trust in, trust out, it says, so garbage in, garbage out. So if we train the model the wrong way, we will generate some very bad outputs. So we need to be careful what data we feed. And this comes to some countermeasures, like what validation of the data that we are feeding to the AI model. And that is very important. So one of the threats is poisoned attacks. And the second one is model stealing. I would say that some threat actors, what they're doing is that they're trying to get the model that we have created to do a specific task. And by prompting questions, they're trying to identify how the model is structured behind, so they can create their own model like the one that they're questioning. And I think that these two are very important threats that we need to take into consideration. We're creating just a threat model now. And of course, the third one is input attacks. That is a list of many, many attacks below the input attacks that I don't believe that we have the time to go through all of them, but that's my 5 cents on that.
Yeah.
Good. And I think, if we see those particular attacks, and we know what, you listed some of those, George, what are the primary controls that we would use to help prevent some of these? Like, what, is there the equivalent of an AI firewall that you can deploy, or, how do you go about mitigating some of these risks?
It depends on what layer are we looking on the AI infrastructure that we have. So if we are going for the, I will name it cognition layer, because let's assume that the component of the agentic AI lives in that layer. We can do a couple of things, like, for example, we would like to reduce hallucinations of the agentic AI. So in order to do that, we might be able to apply guardrails, or we can do simulations of what kind of output it generates, so we can reduce the noise if in case the agentic AI produce such results. And of course, by doing that, we can reduce the risk of creating a bad outcome. So if depending on the layer that we go, and again, if you will use Maestro, that we can see that in every layer we can put like we can enforce provenance if we want, we can enforce authentication or mutual authentication of connections, we can do encryption of the data that we are storing somewhere. There are a lot of countermeasures, and the good thing about threat modeling and iris risk is human mind cannot comprehend so many countermeasures, and having like if someone asks you how many countermeasures you can implement, it's always to have a tool like iris risk to know what exactly you need to implement, because there might be like 15 that you need to do, and it's impossible for a human mind to remember everything. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems like not too long ago we did a webinar on generative AI threats and countermeasures, and I think it was a question of just a few months after we did that webinar, agentic AI security became the new frontier. Like, this was the new thing that you needed to defend against. And I want to come back. Maybe we spoke a bit about Maestro as a framework there. But could you give us an idea, what are the main attack surfaces of an agentic AI system versus just a regular LLM-based system?
Yeah. So agentic AI works in a way that I will call it AI in steroids, right? So it can do the common AI work in a better way, because we can combine different agents to do multiple tasks. One of the things that I want to underline is, again, similar to AI, is the memory and communication poisoning. So in case that one agent, for example, is poisoned and another agent tries to retrieve information from another agent, then you have like a domino effect of the output that you want to do, or the task that you want your agents to achieve. Again, you have agent manipulation, which is another threat that you can, like a human who is asking for specific things from the agent, they can manipulate the agent to do something differently in a different way that you have managed to, you have created a task and it might execute something else. And one more threat that we also mentioned with AI, and that comes to the conclusion of what I want to state, is AI hallucinations. The thing with agentic AI is that in most cases, you might see the same threat landscape that you see for AI. It's just more serious because you combine different kind of agents together to execute a task, and they might have privileges to execute these tasks that if they manage to do something else, it might have a very bad outcome for the infrastructure, the whole infrastructure, because agents have specific privileges that they can't do what you want them to do. So that's my view on this, is that with agentic AI, we need to be a little bit more careful because we have autonomous agents that they can communicate and execute a wide series of tasks together, and you don't want any agent to fail if you have that orchestration of agents.
Yeah, that's why, yeah, it's also useful to have a specific sandboxes for those tool invocation mechanisms. And and on top of what you have said, I think it's also maybe interesting, to have some protections around memory. That's also a key aspect in agentic AI systems. So having, for example, time to live rules, so that if memory gets poisoned, it doesn't last forever. It's a contingency mechanism that could also be helpful with that. Also, as you said, the provenance.
When you say memory, Jorge, do you mean the memory that the agent has about what it's doing, or more broadly?
No, you can have a system that updates its memory dynamically based on of what is learning or some inputs about the user. Okay, the ChatGPT, for example, can do that. Also, In fact, it's very famous, the questions about, what you know about me, give me advice about whatever. So that's, I saw a lot of prompts around that. It's very interesting. Yeah. So yeah.
How about zero trust principles? Is zero trust a technology, or rather an architecture that is important in agentic AI systems?
Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, more than ever. Yeah, because you have a lot of moving parts that should interact all together. So it's like a baseline, a security baseline that it could play an important role. For example, applying like this model privilege, and permission by design. Also use the classical mechanisms of RBAC, ABAC, MFA. It's important to never ask the model to make those decisions around authorization, authentication, because that, of course, could be a recipe for disaster. Because as George said before, it's a non-deterministic system. And also segmentation, micro segmentation could be helpful, especially around integrations and tools, and also having like dynamic policies for authorization. You have like risk signals that you should continuously assess, so that you can make the authorizations decisions in real time, because that's a dynamic system. So authorization should be dynamic too.
You mentioned the concept previously of having sandboxes that the agents can operate in, and also, the fact that they must operate within certain RBAC parameters or even risk frameworks. These kinds of controls, are these all things that the developers and engineers need to go and build into their systems, or is there something that's provided by some of the kind of pre-built agentic libraries and systems that you can use off the shelf?
I think this is previous, like having. I remember when I was playing, with these hacking platforms, so that you can play and learn new skills, but of course you don't want the architecture to be compromised. So I think there are already many mechanisms to sandbox an environment, so that you can run and execute a command in a virtual environment. That's also, the thinking about virtual environments for Python, for example. So I think we already have those mechanisms, but we should take into account that this is an important thing to implement in your system, and to prevent lateral movement, for example. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, and I guess that's the core of the concept, that you essentially need to treat the agent as if it were an attacker, and then defend the rest of your system against your own system in case the agent goes rogue.
Exactly. You can have an insider threat inside your system without knowing it, because it could go rogue.
Yeah. And both the Maestro framework will give you the guidance on how you should look at those kinds of threats and how you would protect your own system from your own agents, as well as the course that you've put together, George. So if anybody wants to kind of look at that, the links are in the chat if you want to learn more about Maestro and agentic AI security. Finally, you've done some work around AI red teaming, Jorge. You want to tell us a bit more about how that differs from traditional testing?
Yeah, I think here we are not talking about just break the code as we did in the past for pen testing exercise and red teaming.
So sorry, let me interrupt you. Firstly, can you define what is AI red teaming? Is it using an AI to be part of your red team, or is it red teaming against an AI system?
Yeah, it's the second one. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the second one on this question. So this is somehow different to previous pen testing exercises. Now, as I said, we don't just want to break the code. We want to break the model's reasoning. So we are target a non-deterministic system. So maybe an exploit could work, and in the next run it doesn't work. So that's one of the difficulties. And also, it's usually you need like goal-driven scenarios. It's not like you are exploiting, or you are identifying a system, then exploiting, and then pivoting. No, you have a goal from the beginning. Exfiltrate biometric data, so you have an, yeah, that's also different. And it's also different that maybe you are not covering also not only security and privacy, that those are the classic domains in traditional pen testing, but you also should take care of excessive agency, misuse, and also safety sometimes, depending on the AI system. So that change the landscape. And also, this is a AI system. It could be retrained. You have the drift. You have changing data source. So yeah, continuous testing makes more sense than ever. So yeah, I think those are the main challenges. Yeah, with the red teaming AI systems. Yeah.
And of course, threat modeling has a role to play even in the AI red teaming, because your threat model can inform your testers. Your threat model can demonstrate, well, here is what we're concerned about. These are the threats that we think exist. These are the controls we think we've implemented. Now, red teaming team, go and validate that and see what you can do and see whether you can exploit some of these.
Yeah, that doesn't change. I think it makes an effective use of the red teaming. Having some accepted risk that you don't want them to test. Yeah, I think it's very useful threat modeling for that. And also nowadays, I think it's important to say that also the purple team, it's very important. It's a mixture between the red team and the blue team. And I think with AI systems, it's more important than ever, to have this collaboration between, the offensive side and the defensive side. So, yeah.
Good, excellent. Well, I think we've come to with 2 minutes past our 30-minute mark. I wanted to thank both of you, Jorge and George, for joining us on this webinar, and thank you all.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great to have you on. Keep a lookout for our next series in AI security and some of the follow-up webinars coming up from Areas Risk. I do see. I'm about to sign off, but I see a last question coming from Praveen, who asks, coming from traditional or non-LLM threat modeling environment, how do you suggest I upskill and practice the agentic AI threat modeling?
I think I can, because I got in that field like 1.5 years ago. I have not a lot of time, but I'm still learning. I think the best case is to go to OWASP, to AI Exchange, Security Exchange, I think it's called, and read a little bit about the documentation around what exactly agentic AI is, what threats we have until now we have seen, and what kind of countermeasures are proposed. So we will get you will get the big idea about agentic AI. I think also it's very helpful if you want to do the course that we have created. I think you will find there valuable information. And I think Maestro is gonna give you a mental model of how you can see an agentic AI in case you want to diagram it. In our course, we have taken a similar approach to Maestro, not exactly the same, for education purposes, in order to be easier for people that they are just starting. So I believe that our course is a very good start also to go into the agentic AI field. And I believe from there is practice. As always, if you do as many as you can threat models, you will get better, and this is how you get better, by practicing every day. And yeah, that's how I did it, and I believe that you will get there. You will have a good understanding of agentic AI systems soon.
Thanks, George. And also just a reminder, you can use our free community edition to try out some of the agentic AI components to understand what are the kind of pre-built threats and countermeasures that Jorge's team has included in the threat model, and you can use that as a basis for a lot of your threat modeling of agentic AI systems as you're on this learning journey. Super. Well, let me close off again. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jorge. Thanks, George.
Thank you very
thanks
much.
everyone attending, and we look forward to seeing you again. Claire says this recording will be emailed to you tomorrow, and all the links we've shared as well will also be included in that. So thank you, and have a good morning, day, and evening. Bye.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.